submission to the one and only true God is what I said earlier on to you, is Islam. That has been from day one, and it will remain until the end of the world. So Islam has been the same consistent message that God sent with all the prophets and messengers with: Abraham, David, Jacob, Solomon, Noah, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, peace be upon them all, right? They brought the same message of gospel of infancy, gospel of
they're very provable to be wrong.
What I'm saying is, you acknowledge people were forging, fabricating, corrupting, inventing books in the name of God. That's what you just said. Okay. If I name gospel of infancy, gospel of Mary, gospel of Judas, gospel of the Egyptians, gospel of the Ebionites, okay, 5, that's out of 49. All of this, which are not in the Bible, you will say they are forgery in the name of God. Written by people who try to believe in the message of Christ.
No.
Okay.
Well, they have different theologies.
Yeah, but it's centered around Christ, right? So now you acknowledge there are wholesale corruption happening in the guidance that Jesus left behind, and people are saying that was what Jesus said. Yeah? And they collected his Gospel of St. Thomas, the 114 sayings, for example. Many of them can be traced to the Synoptic Gospels, if I'm not mistaken. But what I'm making a point is this. We historically know the message of Christ like this were being corrupted and forged and altered in the manuscript tradition of the Bible. I'm sure you're very familiar with. Have you been to British Library? I really suggest you go there, because at one point they opened up one of the books of John in which the passage of the stoning of the adulteress, remember?
Oh yeah, John 7 and 8. That's in, they discovered that in different
it doesn't
scrolls.
exist. It doesn't exist.
In different scrolls. I know, I'm a little.
No, what I'm saying,
that as well.
It doesn't exist in the earliest manuscripts. So that's showing you how earliest manuscripts doesn't support something and later on something coming. Just like in the heaven they're the three: the Father, the Word, and the Ghost, and these three are one. The verse that Trinitarians wish that it existed, but you know it's a forgery from the 14th century.
What do you think of Paul's writings, though?
Paul writes based on his own theology, and his theology contradicts the message even the brothers of Jesus like James.
Why would Jesus? But that's the thing. He is grafted in as an apostle. Jesus
Paul
made
is
him an
not.
apostle.
Paul is a self-appointed.
No. Jesus came to him and made him an apostle on the road to Damascus.
During his lifetime, Paul was not a believer.
Nope. He was a Pharisee.
So now think about your hermeneutics, the way you understand Scripture.
Yes.
The disciples that Jesus chose during his lifetime, or supposedly someone had a vision after Jesus passed away from this life. We believe he's raised up in heaven. So, and someone says, "Oh, I saw Jesus. Jesus came to me, gave me this message," which makes sense to believe and accept the messages of those disciples who were witnesses to Jesus and at the contemporary with Jesus, hearing him, listening to him, or someone later on claiming that, "Oh, I saw Jesus in a vision and Jesus told me X, Y, and Z." Think about it. Which would you go for and take for?
I could say the same thing about Muhammad.
About what?
He has a vision.
No, you don't even know how Muhammad received revelation. He was even receiving revelation during the time when the people were around him. They could see by the weight of revelation when he was on his mount, whether it's a horse or a camel, he would sink this underneath the camel's feet, underneath the sun, because that's heaviness. So there's 23 years of receiving revelation, witnessed by so many of his companions. It's not like the story that you heard in a cave. That was the first revelation. So Quran, my friend, speaks to people of the book like yourself, and it praises you for your righteousness, but it corrects you of your errors and mistakes that you've invented in the religion of God.
Is it a misconception that the Quran has a false view of Christians, a very low view where Christians should be exempt or kicked out of certain places or murdered in some way? This is a misconception that I've been told, and I don't know. So enlighten me.
What the current scholarship does is coming in more in line with the historical Jesus aligns with what the Quranic Jesus is. If you study historical Jesus Jesus.
Yes, I have.
And the research not by evangelists, but whole conservatives, academics, agnostics, whatever they're researching, you will see their understanding of what historical Jesus preached is in line with what the Quran preached about Christ. So that means it's a serious thing for you to ponder. How does the Quran, when instead of copying, if it was coming from an imposter, a fake prophet, instead of copying in what the Christians believed at that time, is telling you what historical Jesus preached, historical Jesus believed in. So you know this concept, for example, Islam disbelieves in the crucifixion of Christ, it was suddenly invented by the Muslims and so on. But you know very well, early church fathers had to write volumes against people who didn't believe in physical crucifixion. Because very early on, there were a branch of believers in Christianity or message of Christ. They didn't believe Christ was crucified. Instead, you know what they believed? That Jesus was sitting on the tree. And this, you call them heretics because you don't like them. He was sitting on the tree, on the branch. He's laughing and says, look, they're killing the wrong man. It's Simon the Cyrene. So,
it would have been recorded.
It's recorded.
That was recorded hundreds of years later.
Hang on.
Documents you mentioned.
These documents within the first 400 years of Christianity.
Yeah, well, okay, here's my final sort of, because I don't think we're going to agree on anything, but I'll say this to all what you said. The argument that you're trying to make to me, I think could be made back to Islam, because you guys have heretics as well, people who say they are Muslims, but then say things about the Quran which are completely false. And you would agree.
Like what?
I don't know in particular, but...
You need to give an example so I can understand.
I don't know an example, but every religion has this.
But what we say is historically backed up. What I am saying,
we say is historically backed up, though.
No, historical Jesus in line with the Quran, not in line with the Bible.
Hear me out. What you say about the wrong thing about the Apostle Paul could be said about Muhammad, because both are people receiving revelation from God. All the apostles receive revelation from God.
Why do they contradict? Why does James contradict with Paul?
James does not contradict with Paul. Are you saying the works by faith? They complement. Paul himself is speaking particularly to Jews, James particularly to Gentiles. It is a letter of context.
Let's understand something. According to James, do you need faith and works, or do you need faith only?
James says in James 2:21, in James 1 and James 2 earlier on, he says that you need, I know this quote.
Paraphrase, if you can remember.
The paraphrase is this: you are not saved by faith alone.
Okay.
Faith alone does not justify you. Paul says, by grace through faith you are saved. The problem here...
Not through works. Did he mention not through works, by faith alone?
Yeah.
Did he emphasize
he does not say alone. Alone's not there.
So did he say not by works but by faith?
He says you are saved by grace through faith. Continues writing.
And not by works. Did he mention that?
He doesn't say works, no. So, he says about the law, he does say the thing about the law because he's speaking to the Jews who are trying to tell Christians that they still need to get circumcised. James is speaking to Christians and Gentiles who have not been Jewish. So James writes that you are saved, you are not justified by faith alone. James uses alone, Paul does not.
Okay.
Post-Romans, I think it's chapter 8 or 10, Paul switches and goes from writing only to Jews and now grafts the Gentiles and it says, okay, Gentiles, now we talk about this. This is when Paul begins to say, have works. But his way of writing it, because he's writing to Jews and the perspective he's coming from is saying, but don't get circumcised in order to be saved. Where then now James is dealing with people who now are moving from Corinth, in which is Paul writes against them in the Corinthian scriptures, who move into Ephesus and the other cities, and now you're getting Christians spreading, and some of these Christians are all saying, well, I don't need to change. It doesn't matter. Jesus saves me, which is a problem still presently. But James says, no, your faith, you are saved by grace through faith, but your faith has to produce works. You're off? Yes. All right, 1 second.
Okay.
I am going to leave because I need to
Sure.
friends.
But can you just confirm Paul's understanding of God? What does he say about God and Christ? The relationship between them?
They're the same.
No. He says, he's talking to Galatians and others, the God of our Lord Christ.
Yes.
So he's making a distinction. Jesus is the Lord, and this Lord has a God. You see the distinction? Paul, there is a God. For him, there is one God, and there is one Lord. this Lord. Do you see?
We're gonna disagree.
You disagree with Paul. Not only disagree with Jesus Christ,
You
but you
have-
disagree with Paul as well.
Your perception is that I disagree. My perception is that you have taken a multitude of scriptures, picked them, plucked
I
them,
don't
and
pick.
said,
I don't cherry pick. I do context.
Does seem like
I gave
But
you
I will-
about
I will
I and
say
the
this.
Father are one in context, which you didn't.
This
Which you
is
didn't
what-
even know.
I did.
You didn't even know. Otherwise,
did,
look,
and I said-
Alan, because you need to go. You didn't even know that Jesus said to his disciples, "You will be also one." Because if you did know, you would not say to the first instance, "One means one God." Like I got it out from you, from your mouth. You said it
did
means
not.
one God.
This is the
It's
same
all
argument
recorded.
you've been using for years.
I think one point here, you said about you are studying Greek. So if you look at the verse where Jesus said, I and Father are one, in Greek it's called hen. And the same word was used when he said, I and disciple are one, is called hen as well. But if you go to Mark 12:29, where Jesus said, Hear Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. When he's talking about God, the oneness is called haste. So there's two different words.
They're the
when
same
it's
consonant.
No.
They're a consonant.
One, when it says hen means one in purpose, and when it says haste means one in number. So when it's Jesus is talking about him and Father being one, and him and disciple being one, he's talking about the hen, which is one in purpose. And when he's talking about the numeric God, like how many God, who is the God, then he's saying haste, meaning the Father is the one who is only true God, like the John 17:3. So do you agree with John 17:3 and John 10:30?
Well, here's the thing. This is my last point. The last point is this. I just think that you guys have a misunderstanding of the Greek and are trying to interpret something out of the Greek that's not there.
But do you know the Greek, the different word of
I
hen
can't continue, but I will say this. I'll say this. I respect your studies and how deeply you guys have been studied. And I
reading the
respect.
Quran.
I will read the Quran. Continue reading the scriptures. Continue seeking unbiased information.
That's what we do.
If the case is,
We're getting from academic, not from Muslim. From Christian academic. We're getting this information from Christian academic, not like
Tom, Dick, and Harry.
I'll say this. If my belief is right that Jesus is God,
Cannot be right. We demonstrated that already.
not really.
Think about it.
but
Reflect.
Hold on. I'm
There's
done
a-
argument.
No.
Let me-
I'm not saying anything. You make
This is my
I'm
last
saying.
point. You're arguing. Now you're interrupting.
No, I'm saying what's your discussion with me on DawahWise and reflect on it. Your last
I
point.
will.
failed
But
again.
hear me.
You failed, Mansur.
If Jesus is God and Jesus is real, then you will be led to him. If Islam is real, I will be led to him. Truth will lead me and truth will lead you. But as I exit, I just want you to know that I respect you too. I respect your study.
Likewise.
I respect your respectfulness.
Take care.
I have enjoyed this
Take care.
conversation.
Carry on reading the Quran.
Yes.
It will enlighten you.
It has been lovely. You guys continue to study, continue to read, and I
care.
pray that Jesus enlightens you.
take care of yourself as
You
well.
as well.